Yeah, that's pretty interesting. All right, for this Wwise music example, I'm going to take a piece that I wrote, and this is for a different project, not in Wwise, but I pulled a little section out of here that should work for our little example. This tune wasn't made to loop on this 8-measure region, but I kind of pulled some bits from here and there, and it should work okay for our example. So we'll just listen to it real quick. And obviously you can see some of them don't loop the full 8 measures. For these were really just kind of repeating rhythm that I wanted to save the disk space, and I'll loop these once we get it into Wwise. So for these, you'll hear these tracks drop out as we continue. All right, now that we've seen the files in Logic, how they're going to basically work, let's look at the files themselves. So that I've named them by, what kind of the mode is, and then I actually numbered them how I wanted them to appear in the system. So if it does it alphabetically without the numbers, it's kind of in a strange order. So this is the number I want them to appear, and then the name of the instrument, and then the tempo. And so that's it, and they're within they're within a Wwise folder, so I'm going to drag this whole folder in when the time is right. All right, so here I have a new Wise session, and we're going to go to the music hierarchy, and I'm going to add a new music work unit. Let's call it music. And to this, I'm going to add a new music playlist container. Call this attack. And then I want to drag that whole audio folder in. So I can either say import audio files and add the entire folder. And I don't want to add the files individually. I want the entire folder because we want to basically create a new music segment underneath this attack. So I'm going to find my Wwise folder that I showed previously and drag it in here. And just be sure it comes in as a music segment with all the tracks themselves being music tracks. So we'll say import to that. And I probably don't want this name to be Wwise, so I'm just going to go here and rename it. Of course, I could have named the folder correctly to begin with, but, sometimes these things, that's just what happens. All right, so the first thing I want to do is set my tempo on the playlist parent. So the default's 120 and our tune's at 120. So we're in good shape, but it's always good to confirm that you're in sync there. So next we're going to add our attack A music segment to our music playlist. So make sure you have this attack parent and then drag that in. So now we have this one music segment element under there. And to loop it, we are going to go over here to loop count. Click. Make sure that's on infinite. So now when we loop, we should hear our segment loop as soon as we assign the loop points. At least assign them correctly. So for this, I've dragged the transport over here, maybe a little bit easier to see. I'm going to pin it on this attack. We're on the attack playlist parent container here. So I'm going to pin it there because that's the one we want to hear. So we make sure we're looping in the right spot. So now if we go over to our music segment, we have our contents window. So it shows all the files, and then we go to our music segment. So as before, this looks, just like a DAW, a lot like a DAW. So we can see all the things that we kind of expect. So we're going to turn all the automation off for now, just so it's easy to look at. Make sure you're snapped to bars and beats, and if you right-click, you have the options between bars and beats and seconds as your grid. So make sure on bars and beats, and over here on 9, this is an 8-measure loop, so 9 is where we kind of want to extend these looping regions and do our work. So all these things that are only 4 measures long, we're going to click those, drag those over, so that's looping just like in your DAW. So these are making loops, it's not creating more wave files. So now those would be good, those would be good. All right, so now we're going to go back to our parent. And I'm going to turn this down general because the way I'm recording compared to my vocals, the music comes in super loud. So probably turning it down more than you would in the real world. But just for this recording, I'm turning everything down just a touch. So now we'll go over here and hit play. Hear how it sounds. Oh, look at that. I forgot to set the end loop mark. Make sure you drag that over to measure 9. We don't actually want it to loop on the second measure. Let's try that again. All right, it's pretty good. But what we need is some variety there since we only have an 8 measure loop. All right, so now we want to create some more variety, and we are going to look at these track types. They come in when you import as normal tracks, it means they just play like in a DAW every time. So we're going to set these to random. And when you set them to random, you have this kind of mini header over here. And we can add a new subtrack underneath here. And so we can either add a version that doesn't play anything, or we can make a copy of this and make it sound a little bit different with the automation. So since this is theremin, and theremin gets pretty annoying pretty quickly, I actually want more versions than I would from the other ones. So let's start with 4. And so I copied this. I'm going to bring it back here. I'm going to paste the clip, make sure that lines up. So for our second version, let's turn on some automation. And so our blue line here is the high pass. And this is theremin's kind of a high sound anyway. So the high pass is it's going to be like almost like a volume as it kind of sweeps in and out. But we'll just do something here, just kind of make it sound a little different. So we're just kind of have it ebb and flow a little bit as the high pass filter engages. The only other thing I'll say with any kind of automation, you want the loop point to be roughly where the entry point is. If we had, the ends down here and the entrance up here, that's a big jump here, and you might hear some unwanted things at that point. So, we'll just see how that works. Maybe we'll just kind of take the volume down in general on this one. So give that a point. And for the volume, we're just affecting the volume of this instance. So when we turn the volume down here, it's in conjunction with this value. So if we edited this value, it's for every instance here. And then with this automation here, it's adding this value to this value. So just know kind of which volume you're changing here. So all right, that looks good. So I'm gonna go do the same thing, random step, and then add a subtrack. So we'll hear this one every other time. And actually, since it's the melody, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna make a copy and then come over here, paste the clip, make sure it's lined up. And then this one, I'm just gonna, again, just change the volume, since it's a melody item, we just don't want it to, we just want as much kind of variety as we can. So, and then everything else is just kind of ostinato items, these high strings. So I'm gonna go random, and then sequence, random, and then subtrack. And I'm always kind of hesitant about taking the bass out of the mix, but there's so much ostinato stuff going on. Chances are, even if the bass isn't there, there's going to be another ostinato element to kind of cover that action. So the other one I didn't do too is this drums. And again, this piece wasn't made for this particular use. So if I, had done it, I would probably add a few few more versions of this drum track, but since I really only have the one that goes all the way through, I don't want to actually take it out. So maybe I'll try it later. We'll see how it sounds. So now if we play this, make sure we're still on, our parent attack playlist container. And if we hit play, we should hear kind of a different version every time. Yes, that's pretty interesting, right? All the different variations. And with all these, you have to just kind of experiment with it to see what works for you. I'm actually going to try and do the thing I said I wasn't going to do and add random to this main drum track. And I didn't necessarily like it when this bass part was dropping out so much. So maybe I'll delete this sub-track. So we're always going to have this bass part. And random step with one element is the same, really, as normal. So we'll just switch that. So let's see how that sounds. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And obviously, if you're just watching the video, you're probably not going to listen to as many variations as I would, since I kind of, made this song and I'm kind of trying to figure out how it sounds and all the different, variations. But yeah, it's interesting just to hear all the different things going on. So I actually kind of want to hear this cello a little bit less. So I add one more instance there. And I liked it with the bass playing every time. And then the drum, this big drum track kind of coming in and out. I thought that was kind of a cool thing. So yeah, that's all the basic, elements of getting kind of, your own track going. Even if it's not written for this environment, still can produce some interesting results. So yeah, hope that was helpful.